Hey guys, Pastor Caleb here. So somebody asked me a really good question that I kind of wanted to get into a little bit, and it was, hey, let's look at hi-fi versus gospel projects. So like, what are the differences between the two, and maybe why would you choose one over the other? So we're going to get into that in our tips and tricks. So this is going to be a little bit different. Instead of looking at stuff on the computer, I'm just going to kind of lay out the similarities, the differences, and maybe why you'd want to choose one versus the other. I know it's getting to be that season where you're starting to look ahead into 2025. I know that sounds crazy, but for budget year and everything, so maybe you're trying to figure out, hey, which one of these am I going to go with? Am I going to stay with what I'm using now? Am I going to make a switch? So maybe this will help somebody make a decision, and maybe not. I don't know. But here we are anyway. So let's get into it. So here are the similarities between the two curriculums. So the biggest similarity is that, they're both put out by Lifeway. And so if you agree with Lifeway's philosophy and how they do things, then you won't have any problem with either one of these curriculums, right? They're both what I can consider like a premier curriculum for Lifeway. So that means that, they're still actively working on both of these. It's not something that it's like a legacy curriculum that they've had for a long time. No, this is something that's still active and ongoing. In fact, the Gospel Project is getting like a refresh that they're going to be releasing, I believe, in the fall or sometime soon. You can go on their website and see their information. So they're both still very much working on these, making them better, improving, and so that's really good. So you'll get that with both of these curriculums, right? They both have content for students all the way down through preschool. Okay, so if you're trying to do like an all skate, like everybody on the same page sort of curriculum, both of these curriculums offer that, right? If you've seen some of my other videos, you know that I'm not like a huge fan of the way Gospel Project does their preschool stuff, but which is part of the reason we switched to HYFI. However, maybe they fixed that in their new content update. Who knows? I don't know. But anyway, that's something they have it. They offer it for all age groups. And then they also have really good support online. So their online support is really is good. You can still get like updates, scope and sequence. You can ask questions. Like if you call in, they've got support for all of that, right? And they even have people that can help you like answer questions about how to like actually make it work in your own area. So both of those offer all of that, which is really good. They both have digital content, so they both feature both videos and images and all of that like content that you would expect to go along with the curriculum. Both of these curriculums actually offer audio, video, images, sort of thing that support and boost up their content, which is really good, right? And they both actually feature online access. So Hi-Fi is all digital, and we'll get into that in the differences, but both of these curriculums have online access to their stuff, digital versions. Now, I will say this, and we'll get into that in a second. Gospel Project is more physical and Hi-Fi is more digital. They also both feature Jesus and a gospel presentation through each of their lessons. I think that that's probably the most important thing. Now, the way that they feature Jesus and the way that they share the gospel is a little bit different, which we'll get in again in the differences. But each of these curriculums, you can know that in the middle of it, they're going to have a gospel presentation available, and they're going to have Jesus right at the center of it all. So those are the similarities of these two products. Now let's get into some of the differences, right? So I talked just a second ago about physical versus digital. Okay, so this is probably one of the biggest differences. So the Gospel Project is going to send you one of these if you just sign up for the normal thing. So this is physical. You got physical leader guides, physical student guides, or kids work guides. They have stuff that you can go online and you can order that are like book based and book driven. Okay, so if you are a fan of like physical material in your hands, then you will like Gospel Project. Okay. Now they also have digital stuff, and I'm sure that you can edit their stuff like PDFs and leader guides like that. But the Gospel Project is still a physical media curriculum, right? They'll send you DVDs of their stuff, so that's good. HYFI is not, okay? HYFI is digital based. So everything that HYFI does is accessed online. So they're not going to send you any physical leader guides or books or student guides or anything else like that. Now, that being said, you can print off Word documents and PDF documents and have physical stuff in the rooms for your leaders. In fact, we do that. We go on and we edit the leader guides online, and then we print it off and have it in the room for our leaders. So it is, even though HYFI is a digital curriculum, you can still have physical leader guides and in the hands, but the way that you access them and edit them are a little bit different. The other difference is kind of the scope and sequence. Okay, so Gospel Project, they over the course of 3 years will take you from Genesis all the way to Revelation. Okay, so that's how they format their stuff, and then what they do is they pull the thread of Jesus through every single Bible story that you encounter. Okay, and so that is kind of fun. It's interesting. As I've used Gospel Project before, you cover some really interesting stories, especially like with kids. They don't shy away from certain stories, which is good and helpful. Right, so that's a pro of Gospel Project. HYFI, on the other hand, they have 12 biblical truths that they work through every single year. So the 12 biblical truths don't change, but the Bible stories that they use and kind of the themes that they use to teach these truths change. So the HYFI is concerned about teaching your kids who they are and who God is using the Bible. So that's kind of that's how the HYFI works. Gospel Project, again, they start from Genesis to Revelation, 3 years, scope and sequence. So you're not like locked in, but you kind of, in order to get the most out of it, you need to start at the beginning and work all the way through. HYFI, it's designed as kind of a rolling thing, so you can jump in at any month and you'll still be okay, and then like jump out if you need to, right? So that's some of the differences. One other difference that I think is good to know is, so I found that the Gospel Project works really well for like a small group or Sunday school formatting, or large group. So I've used it in both ways, where we use some other curriculum for small group, and then we use the Gospel Project content for our kids church large group format. And then I also have used it to where we tried to use Gospel Project for both our small group and our kids church. And personally, what I found, and part of the reason we switched over to HYFI, is there wasn't enough especially digital content for us to do both a really good small group and a really good large group. So, that you can still use Gospel Project for both. You just have to maybe get a little bit creative in what you do. HYFI is specifically designed for like large group, small group formatting. So you can you go from like team time, which is your small group, to like a large group activity, back to a team time. So I found that it's really a lot easier to use this HYFI and have enough content for my small group, and then also have enough content for my large group. So we use HYFI and we break it up, and instead of going back and forth in one large setting, we do team time, and that's our small group material, and they do that ahead of our large group time. And then when they come into kids church, which is our large group formatting, we use their large group content plus a little bit of our own, and that gives us plenty of time. So, all right, so which one should you choose, right? If you made it this far, you're like, all right, well, that's good. These are some of what each of them offer. Which one works for me? So I think the best way to answer this question is to ask a question, which is, what is your goal? And I think that anytime you are choosing curriculum for your students and for your group, you should ask this question first. Like, what is my goal? What do I want to accomplish, or what is God calling me to teach my kids? Okay, so I think if you say, man, I feel like I want to work from Genesis to Revelation over the course of 3 years, and you're wanting to do, if you want to use more like preacher talk, right? If you want to do like expositional preaching or teaching, which is, taking, book by book and going story by story, and you're working all the way through the Bible, then you probably want to do the Gospel Project, right? If you're like, man, that sounds awesome. That sounds like something I want to do. Gospel Project is for you. If you want to teach your kids about who they are and who God is, and what the Bible has to teach them about that, then you probably want to use HYFI. HYFI would be more topical preaching and teaching. Although I will say that, in the course of a month, when you're learning about one of these biblical truths, like, I am known, like God knows me. We had a month where we worked through the book of Psalms, and we each week featured a different psalm, and it helped us understand that like God cares about our emotions, and each of our emotions help us understand. It was I am broken is. No, it was I am broken, yeah. And each of the Psalms pointed to an emotion, and how the emotions, point us to the fact that, man, like, yeah, we feel fear, and we feel sadness, and we feel anger. And the reason that we feel these things is because we are broken. But you know what? God is perfect, and God will help teach us how to deal with those emotions. And when we surrender our emotions to God, He will help us get through. So it was really, really good and rich content. So just because it's topical doesn't mean that it's not lacking in biblical depth. I think it's awesome. So yeah, so each month in HYFI, you've got like a main point, and then you've got like subpoints that build up to it. And then the Gospel Project, you're working through, okay, what is this set of scriptures like teach us about like this time in history, or this set of biblical stories? Like, what does this teach us about who we are, and then like who God is? What's the biblical thread that run through it? Hopefully that kind of makes sense. So anyway, that's HYFI versus Gospel Project. Hopefully that was helpful. We chose HYFI specifically because when we were working through the Gospel Project, there wasn't enough content for our teachers to get through all of small group, and also for us to have good and rich content in our kids' church. And we found that HYFI offered that for us. But Gospel Project is really, really good, and it works through everything. So I've found I know churches that are using HYFI for like a midweek like activity stuff, and they're using Gospel Project for their Sunday morning small group. You just got to find what works for you. So if you have any questions about how this works kind of in real life, I would love to reach out and talk to you about that. We can correspond over email, or set up a time to talk. I would love to do that. So anyway, hopefully this was helpful. HYFI versus Gospel Project. I know that those are not the only curriculums that exist out there, but I know that if you're in kind of the Lifeway world, these are two really good options. So I hope that was helpful, and we'll talk to you soon.